Hey everyone in our tribe and communities. It is Kelly and Ned Vandiver, and we're really excited to be here to do this live stream for you today and to do a live training because these are topics that are so important to really start having an open conversation about because we find that in the relationship and the marriage niche, this stuff just is not available. So we wanted to open up the conversation for these hot button topics and these issues that our clients see in their everyday lives, that we've seen in our everyday lives in the past. And so today what we're going to talk about is how to get more of what you want from your partner. Because all of us are human beings. All of us want to feel on a deep level, number one, happy and fulfilled on the inside. But when we're talking about marriage, people really want to feel loved and appreciated and cherished by their partner.
Yeah, validated.
Yeah. And a problem that we see talking to people every day that we talk to, they are not feeling seen. They're not feeling understood. They're not feeling valued. They're not feeling cherished. They're
not feeling heard.
Right. They're not feeling heard.
Yeah.
And it's quite the opposite.
Exactly.
You know, most people we speak to feel misunderstood. They feel like they can't trust their partners to really understand where they're coming from as individuals.
Yeah.
They feel devalued. They feel
unsupported.
Mm-hmm. They feel disrespected a lot of times. And worst of all, a lot of times they feel unliked and even worse, unloved. So, we want to dive into this topic today. How do we get more of what we want from our partners so that, how can we empower our partners so that they can give us more of what we want? How can we give our partners what they want and empower them to give us more of what we want? And babe, you mentioned something earlier when we were talking about this, about really what the real problem is at the root of this misunderstanding.
Yeah, miscommunication. I made the point of I really want people to understand, because I want to be clear when we talk about getting more from more from your partner, what you need and what you want. I don't want people to misunderstand that, and because oftentimes when we talk about getting more of what we want, it sounds like you're being very selfish, and that's not the kind of support that we're talking about. We're talking about the type of support where you support one another by your partner offering what you need in the way of the support and the validation that you need in the way of communication, intimacy. It could be any number of topics within the relationship field that we all want. So I just want to be very clear about that. The second thing I want to talk about specifically when we talk about this is oftentimes we are, what we are creating in the way of the habits, we call them barriers between communication oftentimes, is often it comes from a place of resentment, okay? And these resentments can be built from negative emotions over a period of time that we don't feel like we're being supported in the communication, and we don't feel like we're being supported and validated in our emotions and our feelings about the things that often become hot button topics, because we find ourselves in cycles of arguments and really horrible breakdowns in the communication, relationship communication that we want with our partners. So I just wanted to be very clear about that too, because I want people to understand that you may think your partner is the one or the reason why you're having the fallout around your communication or that your miscommunication. And oftentimes that's not the case. Over time, it can become very frustrating and very tiresome going around circles and circles around the same dialogue, around the same subject. Everyone can get really, really tired. And unfortunately, we begin to, rather than showing up with a new conversation, with a new lens, oftentimes we're bringing the lens of the past to this new communication. It becomes less about the subject and more about how we're communicating, and really not looking forward to having that communication or that dialogue because we're looking from that lens. Okay. Yeah. So I just wanted to be really clear about that, when we're talking about this subject.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is really the problem here is that most people don't know how to give these things and be generous with their partners because one or both of them are harboring some negative emotions towards the other person that is creating a wall and building the wall a little bit day by day. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how this really shows up. And I want to also preface today's conversation with this. And that is there are a few different kinds of relationship or marriage dynamics that people are in when they tend to come to us for help. One of the dynamics is maybe the couple is pretty new still. Maybe they've been together for a shorter amount of time, and the new chemicals, dopamine, all those addictive feel-good hormones in our brains, they wear off, right?
Yeah, the honeymoon phase doesn't last very long for many people.
Okay, so maybe they've been together for a while, the honeymoon chemicals are gone, and they're starting to notice some bad patterns. They're starting to notice some friction, and a lot of times when people notice this, a lot of times they've been married before and been divorced sometimes, and they're in their second or their third marriage, and they're going, okay, hold on, like there's some stuff happening again, I'm noticing this.
Yeah.
And so that could be one dynamic. They've been together for, some time, but they're still pretty new, but they're noticing some stuff. So they're noticing some red flags, okay? And they want to be proactive about it.
Right, yeah.
About heading those off and figuring that out. The second dynamic we see a whole lot is people who are just, there's no intimacy anymore. There's really no passion. There's not that like fire between the two people, and they've become roommates. It's what we call the roommate syndrome.
Yeah.
And when one or more partners seek us out at that level, they're doing so because they love each other, but they want to start rekindling some of the passion they had in the beginning, or if they've never had it at all, they really want to learn how to cultivate that. And then the third dynamic that we see a whole lot, and probably more than anything, is really when things are on the brink of divorce. Yeah. It's really things are just literally barely holding on for dear life.
Yeah, those are often the cases where people have waited way too long. Yeah.
The marriage is treading water, right? It's on thin ice. And so that's usually when people seek us out. And so what we've discovered after doing this for a long period of time, this work, what I noticed one day and had the epiphany around is that, because I hear so often people say to me, we used to be best friends, we used to have a great sex life. We just understood each other, we just were soulmates and, all this. And then now we're here. I don't even know how we got here. I hear that so much. And so when I go back with people and look at the entirety of the relationship, what I've noticed over and over again until finally coming to the epiphany of is that there's really no difference between those three relationship dynamics that I just described. It's the same relationship. The only difference is the amount of time that's passed between each stop along the way.
Yeah.
And so that's really a key point there, because that's really when time becomes your enemy, when you just think it'll fix itself, because honey, I'm telling you, it will not.
No.
Okay?
No.
So time really becomes the enemy when you start to notice bad patterns and you start to notice things and start brushing them under the rug. It really is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So I'll just end that there. And we can hop into how this shows up. Did you have anything to add to that, baby?
No, I thought that was a really good point, because I think people need to understand everyone feels like they're in different stages of their marriage. We deal with a lot of the same issues. But again, like you said, when do you want to begin to really address the problem? Early on, in the middle, or towards the end when there's little hope. So and understanding that, hopefully, you that are listening will be able to identify exactly where you are and, start taking a very different action if you haven't taken any action at all.
Yeah.
Or been just kind of dabbling and just trying to figure things out. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I think you made a really good point.
I want to stack on what you just said too before we get into the conversation even deeper, because it's really important to understand too, and it's worth mentioning, a lot of people who come to us, they've been to counseling, they've been to therapy, they've been in counseling and therapy for years.
Yeah.
Done programs, they've read books, they've really sought out help, and they've really tried to, look within, and they're really truly been looking for answers. But the truth is, and if you can resonate with that, it's like the answers really aren't out there. No one, and you might learn a skill along the way. You might be recommended a book along the way, and you might just be getting little pieces of things.
Right.
That's not how you get a transformation. That's not how you get the outcomes that you want in your marriage.
Right.
So I just wanted to say that too.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah. So, we were going to dive right in here and talk about how this shows up.
Yeah.
And, I think one of the biggest ways that we see this more often than not is the couples who are really having a really difficult time being honest or mature or totally transparent in their conversations about their feelings and their emotions oftentimes, especially around the hot button issues. The conversations that keep you up at night because at some point you're going to have to deal with it or it's going to come up. And it's either you trying to bring it up and have a real conversation sometimes about it, and sometimes it's your partner who can't really face, the challenge of having an honest conversation about that. There are different reasons why, and, that is. And you can probably speak more to that, but that's one of the biggest ways I see it, is just not really being able to put everything on the table without the arguing and the fighting that ensues and the emotionality that comes around, having that specific conversation.
Yeah. Totally. And if we can't have a mature adult, calm, transparent, but also very emotionally open and vulnerable conversation, if we can't have those kinds of conversations about triggering issues, you're just going to stay stuck in the same patterns over and over again.
Yeah.
Avoiding them doesn't do anything except prolong the inevitable.
Right.
So, yeah, we see that all the time. And a lot of times, and it goes both ways with both sexes, the men and the women. But so often what we find is that women will go to their men. They'll try to bring up a topic of conversation about how they feel about something, about anything, right? And oftentimes, if it's one of those hot button topics, if it's around money, if it's around sex, if it's around quality time, if it's around parenting, if it's around, the hot button issues, many times the men will either withdraw, okay, from the conversation altogether, avoid it, or explode, okay? And that's oftentimes the case. Now, women do this same thing also. So I don't want to negate that. Women do it also, because men and women are equal now. We both use these losing strategies equally. So, but I was just giving an example of how it will show up. A lot of times women, when their husbands will bring up things, husbands are scared a lot of times of conflict because they just want to keep the peace a lot. And this goes same with women, right? But sometimes when men want to talk about something and have a conversation about something, a lot of times women have this strategy of avoidance by being passive aggressive or by pointing a finger. It can show up in different ways.
Sometimes, sometimes one of the ways I've seen, speaking specifically around, when men want to have a talk, and oftentimes I've seen the case where it's around money, because most guys are usually handling the money. And a lot of times I've seen where ladies are actually sticking their heads in the sand around that.
Right.
And the guys don't need so much support in the way that, we're talking about financial support, but the same level of support is needed in the same way that a woman wants to be cherished and shown that she's loved every day. A man wants that validation around trying to hold down the empire. And that is part of his active creation on a daily basis, where he has to manage finances a lot of times. And a lot of ladies are just kind of really putting that in the hands of him alone. And don't get me wrong. Men should be strong. But by the same token, when you work together, everyone has their responsibility with respect to the different facets that, are created that, create the big picture of things, So, there's agreements around, who does certain things, obviously. But everyone, so that we're on the same team, needs to be aware, at least what's going on in that specific area. And if you need help, you should be able to say, I need help also. Just like, when women want help in certain areas of their lives, around the things that they do a lot of times. So, we just want to make that point and make sure people are, clearly understand that this shows up on both sides of, when we talk about, male and females, it shows up in both areas of their lives. So,
and I guess the point in saying that is to say, if you can't have an open, honest, vulnerable dialogue about these issues, you'll never be able to solve them.
Exactly.
So, these hot button topics, these topics that are very triggering for most people, if you do not learn how to master the art of doing that, I'm sorry, you're going to be sticking your head in the sand around the elephant in the room for the entirety of your relationship until you address it.
Right. Yeah.
That's one way it shows up. People just cannot have freaking real ass conversations, okay? Another way that this shows up in people's everyday lives that we talk to is that couples stop connecting emotionally, couples stop connecting sexually, and they really become roommates, what we call the roommate syndrome.
Yeah.
And it's a really big problem. And when it gets to a certain point where the sex isn't happening at all, and we talk with people where sex hasn't happened, emotional connection hasn't happened for a number of months, for a number of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes one or both partners seek attention and love outside the marriage.
Yeah.
Because again, once you get to this point of being roommates, maybe your partner is sleeping in another bedroom. Okay, we see that a good bit. If you've gotten to that point, if you've gotten to that place in your marriage, there have been years and months and years and months of resentment building between the both of you.
Yeah.
And that tells us that you are not having any productive conversations.
Yeah.
You're just not able to talk about these things. And I want you to know you're not alone. That's 99% of married people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately the case when people get to the point where they do start stepping outside of the house, either for sex or for emotional connection. You have reached a point where the communication breakdown is so bad, ultimately it's a hair trigger. If anything could happen at this point, and it's really a bad place to be in, especially if people will, if it's one person that's doing it, that's bad enough. But if the both of you are doing this and you're still not able to communicate and talk about even taking this type of action and being open and vulnerable enough with your partner, you're really in a bad place. It's really hard to recover from, and I say that not to say that there's no hope, but obviously when you get to this place, I mean, you have to feel that way.
Yeah.
Because you're not having the communication and you're not talking and you're not connecting and you're nothing that holds up in the way of saying, we're in a healthy relationship dynamic. And moving forward, it's going to be, very different from here. There's nothing signifying that,
Right. And like the definition of insanity, right, is continuing to do the same thing over and over again, thinking you're going to get a different result. If you've tried different things, if you've tried therapy, if you've tried couples counseling and it's still not working, you're still not having the emotional connection you want to have with your partner, you're still not making love again and rekindling the passion. If you're going and you're doing stuff and you're trying different things, but you're still not getting the result, then you haven't gotten the proper help yet.
Right.
You haven't found that yet until now. Because there are very few of us who have cracked the code on this and who also have made this a lifestyle, a way of living together as partners.
Yeah.
So another way that this shows up, babe, do you want to lead on this one?
Oh, well, yeah. Well,
you had a lot to say about this one.
Yeah, I did, because it kind of, it's just really looking at your partner and really blaming them instead of being able to look at yourself and see where you are, what your part is in that problem. This finger pointing thing is probably one of the most common losing strategies that we see among couples. And it's unfortunate because it really becomes, it can become the foundation for the destruction and just really the erosion of a healthy marriage. Because the inability to be able to look at oneself and address themselves within the framework of any issue in a relationship. If a person's never able to do that, you can forget about it. You can forget about resolving and solving any type of issue. It's just not going to happen. And oftentimes it's the case because we can't do that. It becomes the way that we begin to communicate in any other area or problem that presents itself within the relationship. And like I said, you get into this down spiral around just your inability to be able to accept that you're part of the problem that you're having. And so I just really, it really stood out to me because it's just so prominent when we look into some of the bigger challenges and bigger problems that people are having in their relationship.
Yeah.
You know?
And because it's usually always the case, unless we're talking about some severe, and let's just, qualify that. Unless there's like some severe addiction, severe personality issues, which is often the case, right? Yeah. Sometimes people need help around that stuff first before you can even begin to address intimacy, okay? But if we don't have serious addictions and serious personality issues on the table, it's always the case that the very stuff that we project onto our partners is really the stuff inside of ourselves that we haven't looked into deeply. And babe, I know when we talk about this stuff, like you're like, babe, you can't be so deep when we're talking because people won't understand what you're saying. So if you want to break it down in a way that you feel like people will be able to hear it better.
No, go ahead. I think you're doing a good job. It's awesome.
Okay. Yeah, it's the stuff that we're projecting onto our partners that we really need to be looking at inside of ourselves that we have not yet addressed. And so many times we're trying to fix our partners, okay, when we are really here to fix ourselves. We are not here to fix our partners.
It can't happen.
No, you can't. You can't fix your partner. All you can do is be a mirror for them. We're here to fix ourselves. We're here to fix our own toxic patterns. We're here to fix our own mindset and belief structures that are getting in our way. We're here to heal our own traumas and really see what's going on the inside of ourselves. Because until we do that work, we can't do this work with somebody else.
Right.
See, not properly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason, like you're saying, that's part of the reason that's what leads to so much finger pointing in the relationship dynamic, because oftentimes we're not doing work before marriage. And not in the way that we are really trying to work on ourselves. That's just not the case. This stuff isn't taught in school. Oftentimes it's not modeled in the home. So, by the time you get to the relationship status, you're just stacking on problems, because that's what you're bringing to the relationship. And now you have a partner to actually share that with. And it usually doesn't align very well, Yeah.
And that's where you really get to couples hanging on by a thread, skating on such thin ice, on the brink of divorce, fighting and arguing constantly, dysfunctional cycles and dysfunctional patterns, maybe infidelity, addiction.
Or the whole cycle of, marrying and getting divorced and marrying and getting divorced and marrying and getting divorced. At some point, you would think that a person would begin to think, what is the common denominator here?
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, people get to a point where they think divorce is the only answer.
Yeah.
They think divorce is the only answer, which is BS, because the truth is, look, your marriage can't fix itself. it doesn't just fix itself over time. I hear from people every single day who say, when I ask them the question on the phone, what are you going to do if you don't fix this? What did you think would happen over time if this keeps happening over and over again? And I hear all the time, well, I just thought, it would improve. I just thought it would fix itself in time.
Yeah. Or we just go away.
It would just go away in time because we would just learn each other and I'm just like, by osmosis. That's not how this works.
No.
You don't get in a car for the first time at the age of 16 or 21 or whenever you drive a car for the first time and just know how to do it.
Right.
You have to have someone show you how to do it. You have to read the directions. You have to take the test. I wish there was a test that you had to take before you got married in a class, right?
That would be nice.
Yeah, but there's none of that. No. So yeah, if it's not modeled for you growing up and you don't see it, and we don't learn this stuff in school, it's not taught in college, right? You have to seek out the proper help and you have to learn it, because if you don't, time becomes your enemy.
Yep.
Because like I said before, these 3 relationship dynamics, when people are coming to us, those are 3 dynamics. They're the same relationship. It's the only difference is the matter of time that's passed between the stops. The resentment is building daily.
Yep. Time
becomes the enemy. Because what's happening is, and baby, you mentioned this earlier when we were riffing on this topic, if you're not doing this work that we have made a lifestyle, you're practicing on the daily bad strategies.
Exactly.
That don't work.
Yeah.
And then you're stacking them over a period of time, which is why the resentment builds, which is why the wall just builds.
Yeah.
And then one day you're looking back going, we were so in love. We were soulmates.
Yeah. How the hell did we get here?
Yeah, like, how did we get here? My husband left. My wife left. My wife wants to leave me. How did we get here?
Yeah.
And the answer is, you don't have the skill set. You don't have the mindset. You haven't had the healing, the inner healing that you must have, all of these pieces to have the marriage you want.
Right.
The good news is you can learn it now.
Yeah.
Learn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
So what's the solution? And we can wrap it up.
Well, I mean, first, we've mentioned this throughout. It's really important that people recognize first that they can't do this by themselves. And more importantly, recognizing that they have a problem. Okay. That if they've been trying to resolve it themselves, and if they've even tried, like you said, counseling, therapy, and they're struggling or it's getting worse, and you're looking at books and you're trying to gather a new skill set or something and you're just not able to implement it properly, you're not, you need to look at getting the proper help for yourself. Okay.
Right.
You really need to do some digging and strategize with your partner if that's something that you can do together, and really come to a conclusion about getting the right help. It's so important, because in this internet world, there are lots of people out here who are selling lots of things, and oftentimes, the primary focus for them is more around the money, and not really truly getting the results that you're seeking out. So that's really important that people understand that.
Getting the right help, right? Learning from people who've made the inner work that you have to do daily a lifestyle.
Yeah, and are living it every day, day in and day out. Yeah.
And have gotten the results for themselves and for others. So yeah, because if you don't learn the skills, if you don't learn the proper mindset, learn how to reprogram your mind so it works for you instead of against you, which is all about neuroscience. Definitely Google that if you never have before, because it's really fascinating stuff. And if you don't have the proper support, the proper mentorship from people who can tell you exactly step by step how to get from where you are now to where you want to get, you're never going to have the transformation and the outcomes that you want so badly in your marriage.
That's
You
right.
just won't. You just
Yeah.
won't. You just won't. So if any of this and all of it resonates with you and you've enjoyed this free training, please make sure to like it and share it with your friends. If you have a friend in particular who could benefit from this, please tag them or private message them this video. Marriage is one of those, and relationship is one of those hot button topics, right? Because like money, just like career, just like all the stuff that we as humans tend to.
We oftentimes want to act like we know how to do this stuff.
Right. And we tend to, as humans, project this fake life that is not real, right?
Try to anyway. Yeah.
Try to. And it's why so many people feel like frauds, like, and these are touchy topics, and it can be very isolating to be in a marriage that feels inauthentic, that feels like it's not connected and you aren't fulfilled and happy. And a lot of times people think they're the only ones who are dealing with this stuff. Like those of us who do this work and have made this a lifestyle, we felt the same things that you have. You know, we get upset, we get depressed, we get triggered, we get all the same things. It's just that we know how to deal with those things now.
Yeah.
We know how to process through them,
Yep.
but we go through all the same stuff. So I say all that to say, you're not alone in this. So if you or anyone that you know can benefit from this, please share it. If this resonated with you and you're ready to stop waiting for time to pass and you're ready to stop sticking your head in the sand around something you know that really needs to get fixed, and fixed now, because you know time is your enemy and you're prolonging the inevitable, please book a call with us by inboxing us, and we'll send you a booking link where it'll take you to our calendar. You can book a time and you'll fill out a pre-session questionnaire so we can learn more about you, and we'll book a time to get on a call with you to see if we can help you with the deep problems that are going on in your marriage so that you can do this now. If we can help you with the system that we've created in our own marriage and our own lives, we'll let you know how we can help you. If we feel like we're not a good fit at this time, we'll definitely steer you in the right directions, because we're very well connected and we have a lot of resources to steer you towards if we're not a good fit. Do you have anything to share, babe?
No, I want people to, you know, like you said, there's so many people who feel like, you know, this journey has to be made on their own. And you and I, you know, having worked, you know, and done some personal work on ourselves prior to, you know, us getting together and then really diving into this work together in our marriage, we just know that if it's not necessary to, you know, walk this walk by yourself, don't do it. You know, you know, we know that there are good people out here that can help you, and we know that sitting on the sidelines and watching people and being envious of other people's relationships is never going to get you what you want. You know, you got to step into the game, and you have to take action, and we really are telling you it's necessary to take action now so that you can begin the process of creating the marriage and having the marriage that you really want. You know?
Yeah. No time like the present.
No time like the present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure to do this training with you, baby.
You too, babe.
Mwah.
Love you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.